Pressure is building in Cuba, and it moved beyond a diplomatic warning a long time ago. Donald Trump has moved from the judicial phase to the operational phase. The head of the Southern Command met with Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, and the USS Nimitz is in the Caribbean. Intelligence flights near Cuba. The CIA has already delivered the ultimatum to Havana, helicopters flying low over Miami, and Rubio saying that Trump has an obligation to act if Cuba is a threat. This Friday, May 22, 2026, Trump is not just criticizing Cuba in his speech. He is surrounding the island step by step, targeting the structure that supports the Communist Party, reaching networks linked to GAESA within the United States, tightening immigration, expanding sanctions, and showing that the Cuban dictatorship may have entered its most dangerous phase since it began depending on Russia, China, and its own military elite to survive. If ships, intelligence, justice, and arrests start moving at the same time, what is Trump preparing for Cuba now? Does the communist regime still have a way to escape this siege? How much time does the communist regime have left before losing control of the island? I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now, you'll want to be subscribed to the channel to stay well informed with real-time information, the best journalistic quality you've ever seen, and the credibility standard of Milson Alves. Raul Castro, accused by the American justice system, opened the door, and the movement has already advanced. The Trump administration began treating Cuba as an active threat on Florida's doorstep, just 90 miles from the American coast. The center of the pressure is on three fronts at the same time: naval presence in the Caribbean, intelligence operations in Havana, and direct attacks on the economic network of the communist elite that operates inside and outside the island. The USS Nimitz entered the Caribbean with its strike group at the moment when the Cuban crisis heated up. Officially, the movement appears as part of Operation Southern Seas 2026 with maritime exercises and regional partnership. But the political effect is evident. An aircraft carrier with planes, helicopters, naval escort, and combat assets doesn't pass through this area in a week like this without sending a message. Havana looks out to sea and understands that Washington is not just talking about sanctions, it's showing its reach. The Southern Command is the piece that gives weight to this interpretation. This command is responsible for the United States area of military responsibility in Latin America and the Caribbean. When the Cuban crisis starts to involve meetings at the Pentagon, military leadership, naval deployment, and regional security assessments, the regime is no longer just facing political statements. It starts to face the American machinery. The CIA has also already moved to the center of the crisis. John Ratcliffe was in Havana on May 14, 2026, and brought a tough message from Trump. The United States will only seriously engage with Cuba if the regime makes fundamental changes. This changes everything because Washington is not treating the problem merely as an ideological issue. It's saying that Cuba can't continue serving as a safe haven for adversaries in the Western Hemisphere. Marco Rubio finished the message with a phrase that hit hard in Havana. He said that the chance of a negotiated agreement with the current Cuban leadership is not high. Even while keeping the diplomatic door open, Rubio made it clear that Trump has the right and the obligation to act if he identifies a threat to the national security of the United States. In practice, the Secretary of State put the Cuban regime before a simple choice: truly change or face increasingly heavy pressure. The most sensitive blow came against GAESA, the conglomerate linked to the Cuban armed forces. This structure is not just an economic acronym. It is the financial heart of the military elite, which controls hotels, companies, imports, tourism, currency, privileges, and influence within the island. While the Cuban people face blackouts, fuel shortages, and empty shelves, this network sustains the regime's power behind the scenes. Trump and Rubio are targeting precisely this vault. The immigration detention tied to this network sent a new signal. Rubio announced that the sister of a GAESA executive who was living in the United States had her green card revoked, was arrested, and was placed in US immigration custody. This point is decisive because it shows that the pressure has moved beyond just words. The communist elite who benefited from the Cuban regime are no longer safe just because they are on American soil. Washington is saying that it will not accept families and operators of the system living comfortably in the United States while helping to sustain a repressive machine in Cuba. The sanctions target companies and individuals associated with Cuban power. Humanitarian aid is offered outside of communist control to prevent the regime from turning relief for the people into political fuel for its own survival. Havana reacted. It reacted by attacking Rubio and accusing Washington of planning an act of aggression. Miguel Díaz-Canel defended Raúl Castro and called the accusations a political maneuver. China also came to Cuba's defense and condemned American pressure. This reaction shows that the movement hit the most sensitive point. If it were just rhetoric, the regime would issue a statement and move on. But when Havana and its allies react as a bloc, it's because the pressure is getting close to the core of power. Trump also put the issue at the center of American politics. He said that many presidents thought about doing something against Cuba for decades, and now it seems that he will be the president to take action. That statement is no small thing. It frames the Cuban crisis as a historic decision by the White House. After getting tougher on Maduro, pressuring fuel routes, and raising the political cost for Havana's allies, Trump starts treating Cuba as the next piece on the regional chessboard. The Cuban regime reaches this moment weakened. The island is suffering from blackouts, economic decline, fuel shortages, and external dependence. The communist government tries to blame Washington for everything, but the American message is different now. The problem isn't just the embargo, it's the system that delivers poverty to the people and privilege to the military elite. The movement of helicopters and military formations over Miami, mentioned in circulating reports, reinforces the feeling that something bigger is being prepared. Even without a formal military operation announcement, the atmosphere has shifted. The Cuban community in Florida follows every new sign because they know that Washington rarely mobilizes intelligence, naval forces, the Justice Department, immigration enforcement, and sanctions all at the same time by mere coincidence. When everything happens in the same week, the natural interpretation is that the warning phase is ending. The question now isn't whether Trump is upset with Havana. That's already clear. The question is how far he will take this pressure. There could be more immigration detention against people connected to the regime's network. There could be more sanctions against military companies. There could be an increased naval presence in the Caribbean. There could be an attempt to bring in humanitarian aid outside the hands of the Communist Party. There could be a more aggressive legal action against figures that previously seemed untouchable. The regime knows this and because of that reacts nervously. I'm Milson Alves, global internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves global community.